Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a really, I think, fascinating topic, deforestation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah, and we've got quite a range of sources. We've got some YouTube videos lined up, everything from like National Geographic stuff to some independent creators, even some educational channels.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to hear those different perspectives.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes these educational channels can get really in the weeds.
Yeah, totally, like the science behind it all, right? And I think that's kind of our mission today, right, is to really understand the science behind it, and not just the science, but like the impacts of deforestation, both on a global level and on a more personal local level, and figure out what we can do about it. What are the solutions?
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of times people hear deforestation and they're like, oh, save the trees.
Yeah.
But it's way more complicated than that.
Right. It's a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah. So I think, a good place to start is like the scale, how big of a problem this is. And, it might be surprising to some people to learn that deforestation is responsible for almost 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's like adding another billion cars to the roads every year.
Just from cutting down trees.
That's from cutting down trees.
Wow. Yeah. That really puts it into perspective. Like, I was watching one of those National Geographic videos, and they said at the current rate, the world's rainforest could vanish within 100 years, which a century, sounds like a long time, but that's just a few generations away.
You have a few generations, that's nothing.
Right.
And it's not even just rainforest. I mean, deforestation is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's driven by a lot of things. Agriculture, logging, mining, urban sprawl. I mean,
It's everything, right? Like, we need space.
We need space. We need stuff.
We need stuff.
And deforestation has been going on for centuries.
Yeah.
Driven by this need for land and resources. But I think what's changed now is like the rate
at which it's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just accelerating.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're losing forests at an alarming rate that's contributing to climate change in a major way. But, okay, how does this affect me personally? I live in a city surrounded by concrete, not trees.
Well, you might be surprised how connected our daily lives are to forests.
Okay.
Even if we don't see them every day. Think about the furniture you sit on, the paper you write on, the food you eat.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but it's like, I don't see the connection, It's like so far removed.
Yeah, and I think, I was watching this video by this creator, Christy Todd.
Oh, yeah, I've seen her stuff.
Yeah, and she was talking about how deforestation isn't this far off problem. Like, it's affecting us every day. She mentioned everyday products like coffee, chocolate, even some cosmetics.
Oh, wow.
That are linked to deforestation.
We're crazy. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and it just makes you realize how much we rely on forests, even if we don't always see that connection.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're disconnected from the source of so many things.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established deforestation bad for the planet, but I'm curious about those local climate impacts beyond CO2. I mean, how does cutting down trees in one place affect the weather somewhere else?
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. We have to understand this concept of albedo.
Albedo.
Which is basically how much sunlight a surface reflects.
Okay.
So forests, they absorb a lot of sunlight, but when you clear those forests and you expose bare land, that land reflects more sunlight back into the atmosphere.
So less forest cover equals more heat reflected back into space. Wouldn't that have like a cooling effect?
It does.
Okay.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But that local cooling effect is often outweighed by the global warming.
Right.
Caused by all that extra CO2 in the atmosphere.
Okay.
It's like a tiny drop of cold water in a boiling pot.
Yeah,
it's not going to change the overall temperature that much.
Okay. I get it. It's a complex system, but the net effect is still warming.
Exactly.
So besides albedo, what other local climate impacts does deforestation have?
Well, think about the water cycle forests. Act like these giant sponges.
Okay.
They absorb rainwater, and they release it slowly. When you remove trees, that rainwater runs off quickly, which can lead to flooding in some areas and droughts in others.
Oh, wow.
It's like disrupting the plumbing system of our planet.
So it's not just about temperature. It's about disrupting these natural systems that regulate weather patterns.
Exactly.
And speaking of disruptions, there's a lot of talk about extreme weather events being linked to deforestation. Remember those unusual droughts in Amazonia and those severe floods in coastal Brazil we saw recently?
Exactly. And that's where things get even more complicated. Some researchers suggest a possible connection between these events and the weakening of a major ocean current system called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC.
Okay.
It's this vital system that regulates global climate.
Okay, hold on. For those of us who don't have a degree in oceanography, what exactly is AMOC and why should we care if it's weakening?
So imagine AMOC as this giant conveyor belt in the ocean, moving warm water from the tropics towards the poles and cold water back towards the equator.
Okay.
It helps distribute heat around the planet, and it plays this crucial role in regulating weather patterns. Now, imagine that conveyor belt slowing down or even stopping. The consequences could be dire.
That sounds pretty serious. So how does deforestation tie into all of this?
So, deforestation can alter weather patterns and freshwater flows, which can potentially contribute to the weakening of AMC.
Okay.
And if AMC weakens significantly, it could lead to even more extreme weather events like those intense droughts and floods we've been seeing. It's a domino effect, with deforestation being one of the first dominoes to fall.
So we're talking about potential impacts on a global scale, and it's
Yeah.
not just about the weather. There's also the devastating impact deforestation has on biodiversity, right?
Absolutely. Imagine this. Over 80% of the world's land-based plants and animals live in forests.
Wow.
And we're losing thousands of species every year because of deforestation.
It's like we're tearing pages out of the book of life, and we don't even know what stories those pages hold.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it's not just about losing those individual species. Biodiversity is crucial for healthy ecosystems. They provide us with clean air, clean water, fertile soil, countless other benefits. When we lose biodiversity, we disrupt those ecosystems, and that has consequences for all of us.
It's a chain reaction, and we're breaking those links one tree at a time. And it's not just the plants and animals that are affected. Humans rely on forests too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about all the people who depend on forests for their livelihoods, whether it's for food, shelter, medicine, or cultural practices.
Yeah.
I mean, National Geographic estimates that over 2 billion people rely on forests for their survival.
Wow.
As deforestation continues, these communities lose their homes, their incomes, and their cultural heritage.
That's a sobering thought. It's easy to focus on the environmental impact, but the human cost of deforestation is immense. It's a reminder that this isn't just an abstract environmental issue. It's about people's lives, their cultures, their very existence.
Right. It really highlights the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
Our actions have ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings.
Okay, so we've talked about the devastating impacts of deforestation on climate, biodiversity, and human communities. But I'm curious, who are the main drivers behind this global crisis? What are the forces pushing us towards this ecological tipping point?
Welcome back to our deep dive into deforestation. When we left off, we were starting to explore the forces driving this global crisis. So let's dig a little deeper into who and what is behind the disappearance of our forests.
Yeah, I think it's easy to point fingers and say, big corporations or greedy governments, but I have a feeling it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's this complex web of interconnected factors, but at the root of it all is human demand.
Oh, okay.
Our insatiable appetite for land resources and cheap products is the ultimate driver.
Okay, so the humanity is the culprit, but how does that demand actually translate into trees being cut down? What are the specific activities that lead to deforestation?
We'll think about it like this. What are some of the things we use every day that come from trees or require land to produce?
Well, there's wood for furniture and construction paper for, everything. And then there's food. We need land to grow crops and raise livestock.
Exactly. And all of those activities, if not done sustainably, can contribute to deforestation. Agriculture in particular is a major driver. Clearing land for crops like soybeans, palm oil, and cattle ranching is responsible for a huge chunk of deforestation globally.
Yeah, I remember reading that palm oil is in so many products these days, from processed foods and snacks to cosmetics and even biofuels. It seems like it's everywhere.
It is, and that's part of the problem. The demand for palm oil has skyrocketed in recent years, leading to widespread deforestation, particularly in Southeast Asia.
So what can we do about it? Should we all just stop eating anything with palm oil in it?
It's not always that simple. Palm oil is a very efficient crop, producing more oil per hectare than other vegetable oils. Boycotting it completely could actually lead to even more land being cleared for less efficient alternatives. The key is to support sustainable palm oil production. Look for products that are certified by the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, which means they were produced using practices that minimize environmental damage and protect forests.
So it's about making informed choices as consumers, but what about those of us who aren't, experts in sustainable agriculture? How do we know which products are truly sustainable and which ones are just greenwashing?
That's a great question, and it highlights the importance of transparency and reliable information. Look for third-party certifications, do your research, and support companies that are transparent about their supply chains and committed to sustainable practices.
Okay, it sounds like it takes a bit of detective work, but it's worth it if we want to make a difference. Okay, so besides palm oil, what other agricultural practices contribute to deforestation?
Well, livestock farming, particularly cattle ranching, is a major culprit. Vast areas of forest are cleared to create pasture land for cattle, especially in South America.
Yeah, that makes sense. Meat production requires a lot of land, and those cows need somewhere to graze. So are you suggesting we all become vegetarians?
I'm not saying everyone needs to go vegetarian, but reducing our meat consumption, especially red meat, can definitely help. Choosing sustainably raised meat from farms that prioritize animal welfare and environmental stewardship is another important step.
Okay, so it's about being mindful of our food choices and understanding the impact they have on the environment. Okay, we've talked a lot about agriculture, but what about logging? It seems obvious that cutting down trees for timber would contribute to deforestation.
You're right, logging is a major driver, but not all logging is created. Equal sustainable forestry practices can actually help maintain healthy forests while providing us with the wood products we need. The problem is illegal logging and unsustainable practices like clear cutting, where entire sections of forest are removed, leaving behind barren landscapes that are vulnerable to erosion and biodiversity loss.
So it's about finding a balance using our forest resources responsibly without decimating them in the process. What about mining? I imagine that digging for resources like coal, gold, and diamonds could also lead to deforestation.
Absolutely. Mining operations often require clearing large areas of forest to access the resources below. And it's not just the initial clearing that's a problem. Mining can also lead to pollution, habitat fragmentation, and displacement of local communities.
Wow, so it's a multifaceted problem with far-reaching consequences. I'm starting to understand just how complex this issue really is. It's not just about saving trees, it's about addressing a whole system of interconnected challenges.
You're getting it. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of everything and recognizing that our actions have consequences that ripple throughout the entire ecosystem.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture so far, but I'm hoping there's some good news out there. Are there any success stories, any examples of how we're turning the tide on deforestation?
Absolutely. There are some incredible initiatives happening around the world, from community-led reforestation projects to innovative technologies that are helping us monitor and manage forests more sustainably.
Oh, that's good to hear. Do you have any specific examples that come to mind? I'm always inspired by stories of people taking action and making a real difference.
One that really stands out is the Yarra Biodiversity Corridor in Australia. Imagine walking through what was once barren desert and now seeing vibrant forests teeming with life. That's what they've achieved in the Yarra Corridor. They've even brought back species that were on the brink of extinction, like the adorable Carnaby's black cockatoo. You should look them up. They're amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm definitely going to look them up. So how did they manage to transform a desert back into a forest? It seems like an impossible feat.
It involved a multifaceted approach, combining traditional knowledge with modern science. They started by planting a diverse mix of native tree and shrub species, ones that had evolved to survive in Australia's harsh conditions.
They didn't just plant trees and walk away, though, right?
Right. They implemented drip irrigation systems and water-retaining soil additives to help the seedlings through those crucial early years. They even experimented with biochar, a type of charcoal that improves soil structure and fertility. It's a reminder that successful reforestation often requires more than just planting trees. It involves creating the right conditions for them to thrive.
So it's about working with nature, not against it, using our understanding of ecosystems to restore what we've damaged.
Exactly, and the results have been remarkable. The project has documented an increase in bird populations, the resurgence of rare species, and even a tripling of the western spiny-tailed skink population in some areas.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the resilience of nature when given the chance to recover.
It's like we're hitting the reset button on a damaged ecosystem, giving it a chance to heal and flourish again.
And the Yarra project isn't just about restoring biodiversity. It's also making a significant impact on climate change mitigation. The trees planted in the corridor are estimated to have captured over 1 million tons of CO2 already, and that number is expected to grow exponentially as the project continues to expand.
So it's a win-win, restoring ecosystems and combating climate change at the same time. That's inspiring. Are there other large-scale reforestation projects like this happening around the world?
There are, and the Yarra project is serving as a model for many of them. Take the Great Green Wall in Africa, for example. Yeah. It's an ambitious project that aims to plant a wall of trees across the entire width of Africa. from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east, creating a barrier against the advancing Sahara Desert.
Wow, that's a massive undertaking. It's amazing to see this kind of global collaboration and commitment to restoring our planet. It gives me hope that we can turn things around. But I'm curious, these large-scale projects are important, but what about those of us who aren't billionaires or government leaders? What can we do in our everyday lives to make a difference? It can feel overwhelming to know where to start.
That's a valid question, and it's important to remember that individual actions, when multiplied by millions, can have a significant impact.
Okay, so what are some concrete things our listeners can do to join the fight against deforestation? Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. In the first two parts of our exploration into deforestation, we've uncovered some pretty alarming facts about the rate at which we're losing forests and, the consequences for our planet. But we've also seen some inspiring examples of how people are fighting back, restoring ecosystems, and finding solutions.
Yeah, it's a complex issue with no easy answers. But I think what's become clear is that we all have a role to play in protecting our forests.
Exactly. And in this final part of our deep dive, I want to focus on what we can do both individually and collectively to make a difference. We ended the last part talking about individual actions, but you mentioned that those actions need to be multiplied by millions to have a real impact. How do we get there?
It's about creating a ripple effect. Think of it like throwing a pebble into a pond. The initial impact might be small, but the ripples spread outward, influencing a wider area.
Okay, I like that analogy. So what are some of the pebbles we can throw those individual actions that can create those ripples of change?
Well, we've already talked about being conscious consumers, choosing products that are certified sustainable, reducing our reliance on single-use items, and researching the companies we support are all important steps.
It's about being mindful of our choices and recognizing that every purchase we make is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly. And remember, individual action isn't just about what we buy. It's also about how we live, reducing our energy consumption, using public transportation or biking instead of driving, and even just planting trees in our own yards or communities can make a difference.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected to this web of life, and even small changes in our own lives can contribute to a healthier planet. But individual actions alone aren't enough, right? We also need systemic change. We need governments and corporations to step up and take responsibility for their role in deforestation.
Absolutely. We need strong policies that protect forests, incentivize sustainable practices, and hold those who engage in illegal deforestation accountable. And we need businesses to adopt sustainable supply chains, reduce their reliance on commodities linked to deforestation, and invest in restoring the ecosystems they've impacted.
So it's about pushing for change at all levels, from our individual choices to the policies that govern our societies and the practices of the businesses we support. But let's be realistic. There are a lot of powerful interests that benefit from the status quo. How do we overcome those obstacles and create the kind of systemic change we need?
It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Public pressure is a powerful force when enough people demand change. Governments and corporations are more likely to listen.
So it's about raising awareness, speaking out, and holding those in power accountable. It's about voting for leaders who prioritize environmental protection and supporting organizations that are fighting for change.
Exactly, and don't underestimate the power of innovation. Technology can play a huge role in finding solutions to deforestation.
We've already seen some examples of that, like the drones being used to plant trees and the satellites monitoring illegal logging. What other technological innovations are on the horizon?
Well, artificial intelligence is being used to analyze vast amounts of data, helping us identify deforestation hotspots and predict future trends. This information can be invaluable for targeting interventions and making more informed decisions about forest management.
So it's like we're using technology to outsmart those who are destroying our forests. That's pretty cool. What about the role of science? How can scientific research help us find solutions to deforestation?
Science is crucial for understanding the complex dynamics of forest ecosystems, guiding to find the drivers of deforestation, and developing effective strategies for conservation and restoration. For example, scientists are working on developing new tree species that are more resilient to climate change and disease, which could be critical for reforestation efforts in a changing world.
So it's about using the best available knowledge to guide our actions and make sure our efforts are as effective as possible. I'm starting to feel a bit more optimistic. It seems like there's a lot of potential for positive change if we can harness the power of individual action, government policy, corporate responsibility, technology, and science.
I agree. It's a multifaceted challenge that requires a multifaceted solution. But the most important ingredient is hope. We need to believe that change is possible and that our actions can make a difference.
I think that's a great place to end our deep dive. It's been a journey of discovery, learning about the devastating impacts of deforestation, the forces driving it, and the inspiring solutions emerging around the world.
And I hope our listeners are leaving this deep dive feeling empowered to take action.
Absolutely. Remember, every choice we make, every action we take can contribute to a healthier planet, whether it's choosing sustainable products, supporting organizations fighting for forests, or simply spreading awareness about the issue. We can all be part of the solution.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. This has been The Deep Dive signing off.